Guys, welcome to the fifth and the last session of Socialism in Europe and the Russian Revolution. I'm Ankana, your master teacher for social sciences at Vedantu, and I hope all of you are doing absolutely amazing, staying home and staying safe. Now, you might have been thinking that, oh my god, this is an ever going, everlasting chapter. But yeah, finally, we have come to the end of this. And without any further discussion, let's quickly put an end to this one. I know this one is a difficult one, right? Okay, so guys, today we're going to talk about making of a socialist society, Stalinism and collectivization, global influence of the Russian Revolution and the USSR, and of course, our one mark, very important homework question at the end of the session. So don't go anywhere. Stay tuned for this very important one mark homework question. Okay, so now as you know guys, we're going to talk about making a socialist society. So as you remember, in the previous session we had discussed that Lenin, the Bolsheviks, basically with all the civil war and everything, whatever had happened, it finally, you know, with the February revolution, October revolution, this revolution, that revolution, had come victorious and were finally in power, right? So after that, naturally, they had formed a socialist government, right? So now, of course, they had lost the election. Then somehow they had still come to the power. They had dismissed the parliament, what not. But in the end, they became victorious and they were finally in the government again with whatever they had to do, with whatever it was required to take them to be there. Okay, now guys, if you remember, we discussed that there were certain things that Lenin, that Bolsheviks, the communist, new Russian Communist Party was kind of asking for. It was a combined effort, it was a combined ask. One of those asks was a nationalization of the banks, correct? So that was happening. Now that they were back in power, nationalization of the banks, you know, socialization of the land, where the peasants were cultivating on the socialized lands, all of this was back in plan. It was happening as they had decided as Lenin had asked right in the beginning, if you remember, April thesis, right? So don't forget to tell me what April thesis is in the comment box. So that is your quick revision check. What do you mean by April thesis? What was April thesis? You have to describe for me in the comment box. Now, for the people who are not sure what it is, I'm sure you have not watched the previous sessions. Don't forget to watch the other 4 lessons that has been done on socialism in Europe and Russian Revolution. Very important, but sure, it's a very important chapter and it's very difficult as well. Okay, coming back to the point. So now that they were in power, socialization of the land was done. The lands were socialized where the peasants were, you know, cultivating. The banks were nationalized, and at the same time, the authority had now introduced centralized planning. So the plan used to happen in the center and everyone else around was kind of following it or adapting it. But the main power was the center where the main plan was happening and everyone else was kind of, you can understand simply in simple words, executing it. Okay. Now this plan was done for 5 years altogether in the beginning itself. That's what the officials had started doing. They would plan the 5 years. How it happens in India, right? We always have 5-year plans. Now what is the idea of 5-year plans? Which are to have more stability, to have a long-term plan, which is more, beneficial in the long run. So they had started coming with plans for 5 years in the beginning itself. And now new factories were being set up. If you remember, we had also discussed that in Russia, still most of the population used to depend on agriculture and factories were only in pockets. So now the factories were being set up. Naturally, wherever the factories were being set up, people were being, people were migrating there and new cities were also setting up along with that. Now with this centralized planning, it did lead to growth of the economy. Okay, it did lead to economic growth. It's not like it was not at all fulfilled or it was not at all fruitful. It definitely was. Now at the same time, the government had started fixing prices of all the commodities to promote industrial growth in the first 2 plans, in the first 2 5-year plan. Now, as I told you that new factories were being set up, so naturally the people were moving. People were moving from farming, people were moving from villages, all of these, and coming and migrating near the places where the factories were set up. Now all of this was leading to economic growth, definitely, but despite of Bolsheviks being a party for the workers, the condition for the workers had still not improved. In fact, it was even worsening, it was worsening even more. because of the rapid construction. So as I told you, factories were being set up. Now naturally these factories couldn't have been set up in a day. It was taking some time, but these guys wanted to start immediately, as a result of which they were hurrying up with it. A steel factory, a steel plant was constructed just in 3 years. Now you might be thinking that, ma'am, 3 years is not a very short period of time. Why do you feel like, oh my god, it took 3 years and just in 3 years they did? Because guys, at that time it used to take a lot more than that to build such huge plants in this capacity. So these plants were constructed in just 3 years, in short spans of time, just to make sure that they are, growing bigger and bigger. And this is one condition of Magnitogorsk that we are taking in case in point, as a case in point. It is also given in our books, right? So now we are talking about that construction were happening at a very rapid pace, right? And in this rapid pace, what is now happening is that the quality is not really taken care of. And naturally, the idea of the Bolshevik socialism and everything was to definitely improve and help the workers. But that is one thing that was being neglected over here. In fact, when they wanted to even use the washroom, they had to go down in minus 40 degrees Celsius and come down 4 floors down, cross the road, and then go to the washroom and then come back. So you can imagine how poor the conditions of these working workers were. As a result of this, 550 workers dropped down in the first year of the working itself. But this was only one problem. It's not like there were multiple problems. There were also few things that the government was trying to do good for the workers. See, there was a balance. It's not like these people were not working. They figured that the whole idea of them being into the government was to work for the workers, was to bring in socialization, was to assure that the society was being a better place for everyone who used to live there. So they did started, increasing the industrialization. They opened creches where the women workers could keep their children and would not have to worry that if they're going to work, who will look after their children. I mean, it's such a noble thing. Cheap public health care was provided. All these public services now, model living quarters, cheap health care, all of these things were provided to the workers. Not just that, school institutions, learning institutions were being opened. Not just for children, guys, even for the workers, for their upskilling, for their training, which was lagging behind somewhere. The idea of enrolling them into universities were being considered. This was the economic growth of the first 5-year plan between 1927 to 1932 and 1933 to 1938. All of this was a plan of those first 5-year plans. Okay, now this was the good that was happening in the society for the workers. Now, this is when Lenin was there. This is when the Bolsheviks finally started working for the people. But then started Stalinism and collectivization. Now, let's understand who is this person and what is collectivization. So, as I told you, collectivization of agriculture now was introduced during 1927 to 1928. Now, this was an agricultural reform, but what does it mean? We will understand what does it mean, but let's understand the scenario at this point. So, which all of a sudden famine had struck. There was a deficiency, or you can say actually there was not enough supply of grains. Okay. Now, the towns in the Soviet of Russia were facing this problem because the grain supply was not enough in number for the growing population, for the amount of people who were there. As a result of which, the government decided to come up with a solution that they would fix the prices of the grains. Maybe that would help solving the problem. That further increased the problem because the big farmers, the peasants, not just the big farmers, the peasants in general refused to sell the grains that they had to the government at the fixed prices. See, a lot of them had different stakes at it, right? Many of them would have spent a lot. Many of them would have spent less and were making profit. Many of them had spent a lot and were making a loss while selling it at a fixed price to the government. As a result of this, the peasants refused to do so. And all of this was actually actually happening under Joseph Stalin. Now, who was Joseph Stalin? So, but Lenin had already passed away. Okay, after his death, someone had to take over, and Joseph Stalin had taken over and was heading the party of the Bolsheviks after the death of Lenin. Okay, and now because all of these things are going on, shortage of grain is there. Although fixed pricing has been done, but the peasants are not following it. They're not selling the grain to the government. So Joseph Stalin, again, see, Bolsheviks were kind of fanatic people, right? A little bit of extremist, a little bit of radical nature was there in all of them, innate. So same was there with Joseph Stalin as well. Now what did he thought that maybe the reason behind all of this is that the peasants, okay, especially the big ones, the rich peasants, are doing this on purpose. What they're trying to do is they're trying to stock, they're trying to hoard these grains so that whenever the prices actually go up, they spike up, then they will take out all the grains to gain the profit. But this was just based on speculation. There was no solid proof to prove this thing. There was no solid evidence. Now, as a result of which, just based on his speculation, he started taking emergency measures. He adopted certain measures which were kind of extreme in the nature. So a lot of party members were now encouraged to go randomly raid or visit the grain production areas. Randomly, they would go to the rich peasants, grain wherever their fields was or the stock houses were, and they would try to supervise, and they would also try to force the grain collection. They would try to force to collect the grain from them because they were not selling it all willingly. Now this was definitely upsetting all the peasants, especially the rich ones, right? Because they were raiding the kulaks and suggested for collective farms. Kulaks bacha are the rich peasants. Okay, we will look at the definition once again, but this is what it means. Okay, and the reason they were doing so, as I told you, because they thought that grain shortages were because of okay, now what do I mean over here, and what are we trying to describe in terms of reason? So we've already discussed that the reason that he thought, he was speculating for the shortage of the grain was that these rich peasants were hoarding the grains and were waiting for the prices to go up high so that they could sell it off. But at the same time, they're also promoting collectivization of the farms. They are promoting collectivized farm. Now what do we mean by that? So there were a lot of peasants, guys, who were who holded only small lands. So what these guys started saying was that if you hold small lands, naturally the production will be less. Also, the modernized technology will not be possible to use on these small lands. So in order to make all of this happen, increase the production, make sure that you are able to use the modern techniques and irrigation system and everything, all these small lands should be collected and taken into one large hoarding, which should be controlled by the state. Okay, these large farms should be controlled by the state, which would ultimately eliminate the kulaks. Okay, which would eliminate the rich peasants, and then everyone should be working on it, and the profit that is made by that land then should be equally divided among everyone. That was the basic idea of socialism, isn't it? Okay, so they were again professing it, but they were not taking into consideration but what was the reason that the harvest was not really up and high. So guys, as I told you, kulaks were the name for well-to-do peasants, and kolkhos was the collective farms. Okay, that is what they used to call the farms. Now the farmers were not agreeing to it. They were not ready to work, cultivate in collective farms on the kolkhos. Okay, but they were being kind of forced to do that. Okay, and then whatever profits were being made, it was equally divided, shared by everyone. Now, few of the farmers were really resisting this. See, we have already read that the Russian farmers were definitely not like the farmers of Europe. Okay, they were not very submissive, or they were not someone who could have been easily dominated or oppressed by the government. So these guys came up with their own solution to fight the situation. They said, okay, if you're going to do this, then we are going to destroy our livestock. Okay, they destroyed their cattle, and 1/3 of the cattle was destroyed during this period, and as a result of this, the government also got really furious, and then they were punished very severely. In fact, few of them were even deported or put into exile. Now the peasants obviously did not want to work in the collective farms. Naturally, they had made that very explicit in the beginning itself. So they kept on explaining to the Stalin's government that, hey, you have to understand that not all of us are rich. The only reason that we don't want to work on the collective farms are various and varied in nature. It's not because we do not promote socialism. We are in favor of socialism. We just don't want to work on collective farms because of our own personal reasons, and we are not all rich over here. So finally these guys came around the idea and they let some of the independent cultivation happen. However, they were kind of unsympathetic. They were not really sympathetic, supportive towards it. They were a bit cold towards them, but they still allowed it. Okay. Now, in spite of all of this collectivization that Stalin had forced on people, the supply of the grain did not increase. And that left the people with a great deal of dissatisfaction, because the peasants had already suffered. Now, a huge famine had struck between 1930 and 1933 because of the bad harvest, which led to famine and further to the death of 4 million people. Now, despite of such extreme measures, and still the people are dying, there's still a shortage of food supplies. You can imagine all of these policies and practices must have been denounced by everyone, and that is what happened. Everyone, in fact, Stalin's own party people had started criticizing him because of his policies like collectivization. And then what did Stalin do? He was an extremist, right? He wouldn't have heard anything against him, so he started suppressing their voice by saying that, oh my god, this person is trying to conspire against socialism, this person is trying to conspire against me, so send this person to prison. And that's what he started doing with everyone who was trying to raise their voice, as a result of which accusations were made, and by 1939 almost 2 million of people were put into jail by Stalin. I mean, like anyone who was trying to raise his voice or be a little rational was just picked up and put into the jail, as a result of which a number of people were forced to confess false confessions which they had not done, and were even executed, were even put to death. Okay, now this is what the society looked like under Joseph Stalin after Lenin. Now, bacha, we are going to see how the global influence of the Russian Revolution took place, and the USSR, what was the influence of it. So everyone was kind of giving mixed reaction to the socialist approach of the country. See, bacha, now this was the first time that there was a government which was uplifting the workers, which had taken the consideration of which had actually taken into consideration the vision, the demands of the workers. So they were definitely being praised for it all over the world, and in fact people were looking up to them, people were inspired by them, and they were trying to adopt something of the same kind. Okay, as a result of which communist parties were being formed in most of the parts of the country, most of the parts of the world. One example is the formation of the Communist Party of Great Britain. But as Bolsheviks also were continuously working in order to spread socialism, because they wanted this to establish in the entire world. They even encouraged the people who were colonized, okay, because they were already being oppressed, they were already suppressed. So these guys were encouraging them to go ahead with this socialist approach, because there it was even more required. Okay, they even used to have conferences of the people of the East, for the people of the East in 1920. Many of these people were actually non-Russians, and they were participating in these conferences. Okay, they even founded Comintern. Now, what is Comintern? Comintern was basically an international union of pro-Bolshevik socialist parties which would basically promote socialism. Now, what was the world view if you talk about on USSR? So, basically what happened was that the world eventually was realizing that the idea of socialism was very idealistic, and everyone was looking up for it, and everyone was very inspired by it. But when they started comparing the actual idea with what was really happening in Russia, they were not happy with it. Russia eventually declined and lost its reputation, and was declining as a socialist, reputed socialist country. People started thinking that this was just a backward country who all of a sudden had got a lot of power, and they were just trying to force their people, they were just trying to make their people listen to them by repressive policies. Okay, and the essential freedom of the citizens were denied to them, it was not being given to them. So in the end of, towards the end of 20th century, the international reputation of the USSR as a socialist country had declined. They had lost that reputation. But definitely different countries did adopt this idea, because the idea of socialism was very idealistic in itself. It was talking about the upliftment, the empowerment of the working classes, which was very important, which was very inspiring, and people had taken it up. But definitely they had their own interpretations, they had their different ways of adopting this idea. And so guys, with this we are done with the lesson. Let's quickly talk about your about the Vedantu Pro subscription. So bacha, as you know, I have spoken about this so many times. These are a lot of problems that you guys face. All of these problems, how do you clear your doubts, when do you clear doubts, where do you clear your doubts, with whom do you clear your doubts, what are the kinds of notes that you should be referring to for your exams, what are the certain tests and assignments, how many tests and assignments you should be taking, choices of schedule, choices of language, all of these problems that you had has been solved with a lot of bonuses like unlimited live classes, micro sessions, crash courses, performance reports, in class live performance reports. Who doesn't want that? Classes happening, quizzes are going on, and immediately in the class itself I get my performance report, like how much correct I have done, what wrong I have done, where do I stand in comparison to all the hundreds of people who are there. It gives me a true sense of a preparation for the future board exam, correct? And then of course personalized attention. Who doesn't long for the personalized attention and a personal one-on-one conversation with the teacher? Now you can always come into the live sessions and clarify your doubts with the master teacher or the class teacher. All your doubts will be clarified in one session, is a promise. And how can this happen? All you need to do is bacha, go on vdnt.in/ytpro, and then you get three options of selecting packages of 1 month, through 3 months and 6 months. Choose whichever package you feel is perfect for you. If you just want to go ahead and try something new and you're not very sure about it, you go ahead with the package of 1 month. If you're kind of sure but you don't want to spend so much of time into it, then you can go ahead with 3 months. But if you're absolutely sure and want to be quickly a part of the Vedantu family, you can definitely and should definitely go with the 6-month package. But let me quickly tell you that the 6-month package is the jackpot, because you get the most highest discount, you get the highest discount over here. Okay, the package of 11,499 is just coming for 9,774 rupees. If you actually calculate for 6 months for 6 subjects with all of these facilities, the kind of money that you're spending is actually less than 10 rupees per day, which is less than what we spend on a packet of chips or a chocolate. And what do we need to do? We just need to go on the link vdnt.in/ytpro and apply the code AKEPRO. Make sure bacha you're applying this code, otherwise you will not get the discount. Okay, and let's quickly look at your homework question. Who started collectivization program in Russia? Karl Marx, Rasputin, Stalin, or Lenin? Guys, don't forget to put your answer in the comment box. Also make sure that you are asking your doubts in the comment box, so that I'm able to pick it up your doubts from there and address it in the doubt and the Menti session. But don't forget to put your question, whatever it is, no matter how easy, how hard, in the comment box. And also, if this video helped you, don't forget to hit the like button. Make sure you're subscribing the like button, so that whenever we're coming with the doubt and the Menti session, you get the notification immediately and you don't miss out the session. Do tell me, how did you like the session? I will see you guys in the next session. Till then, stay home guys, stay safe, take good care of yourself and your loved ones, and I will see you very soon. Bye bye. Have a great day ahead.